want you all to know that it is raining. It is pouring down rain out there. It is incredibly wet and rainy, and somebody just drove by the front of my house on a riding lawnmower. I swear that they're waiting for me to start recording so that they can get on their lawnmowers and disrupt my recording. I remember seeing the first Silent Hill movie in theaters. I hadn't played the first 4 Silent Hill games back in 2006. My first Silent Hill game would later be Silent Hill Homecoming, and that wouldn't be for several years. I know. At least it wasn't downpour. I'd always heard incredible things about the Silent Hill games, hearing people talk about them and seeing articles about their legendary game status. But all I really had to go on was what was in the public consciousness. The town of fog, the imposing darkness, the executioner called Pyramid Head, the sirens that announced the nightmare world, rust, a lot of rust. The director of Silent Hill 2006 takes a lot from the video games aesthetically. The town of the movie is filled with early 2000s CGI fog. The executioner called Pyramid Head appears and flays somebody on the church steps. Everything is covered in rust. Just so much rust. However, there are many changes. In the games, Silent Hill is a resort town in Maine, a place where couples go to get away for a romantic weekend. In the film, it's an old mining town in West Virginia based on Centralia, Pennsylvania. Instead of snow falling from the sky, fluffy from the winter lake, the town has constant ash falling from the sky due to the perpetual burning of the coal mines beneath it. The protagonist of the first Silent Hill game is Harry Mason, a man looking for his daughter Cheryl after she disappeared from his car following a spin-out. In the film, Harry Mason is replaced with Rose Da Silva. Famously, the director thought that a mother searching for her daughter would be more believable. According to Screen Rant, while answering a fan question on the official Silent Hill blog in 2006 via Silent Hill Memories, Gans claimed that during the early stages of writing the movie, Silent Hill's original main character, Harry Mason, was intended to be the movie's lead too. Gans then claimed Harry never acted like a masculine character, and that he was constantly dizzy, fainting, talking to himself, screaming, and in fact was very vulnerable. The director then stated, "We didn't want to betray the nature of the game by changing the character's feelings and motivations, so we felt it was better to change to a female protagonist and retain all those important qualities." Put a pin in the early 2000s sexism, because we will come back to that. I promise. I remember thinking the movie was fine at the time, but I also understood why people wouldn't like it, especially fans of the video game. Critiques about the change of location, the nature of the town, the inclusion of the executioner called Pyramid Head, the gender swapping of the main character, the undoing of the game's triumphant ending, all of these could be read as pedantic complaints if the movie were better or the game's less beloved. But in the end, the games are beloved, and the movie is generally considered fine, mid, bad. The Silent Hill movie has a lot of the trappings of the early 2000s horror scene. There's a big focus on visual effects spectacle over deep writing, a strange obsession with the visuals of the American Ring film. The executioner called Pyramid Head acts as the movie's franchise mascot, just like a Freddy or a Jason. There's a twist ending that subverts the happy ending by revealing that the characters are actually indeed doomed, and you, as the viewer, were foolish for ever thinking that there would be a happy ending. If you want a better twist on similar concepts, Stephen King's The Mist and 1408 were both released a year later. I don't know if I was even aware that the second Silent Hill film, Silent Hill Revelation, was released in 2012. I think I only heard about it within the last year or two, and my memories of the first Silent Hill film were such that I wasn't particularly inspired to go watch it. I was surprised when a third movie, Return to Silent Hill, was announced, but I wasn't particularly surprised when it ended up with a whopping 18% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes as of the time of this recording. Return to Silent Hill will probably be remembered as a failed horror game adaptation, alongside the Resident Evil films, which I've talked about previously, Doom, Until Dawn, and the many films that Uwe Boll made bad on purpose for tax reasons. Allegedly. What's happening here? Why is it so hard to adapt such an iconic horror game into an even serviceable horror movie? I'm hoping that they're done. It's been 3 hours of them riding their lawnmower around out there, so hopefully I can get a clean recording. I'm back in my void. I have the better lighting, the better microphone, and the better acoustics, so hopefully this will be a better recording. What is a Silent Hill? The first Silent Hill game started off as a horror adventure game, meant to compete with Resident Evil and Alone in the Dark.
In the formation stages, the team considered making an adaptation of Stephen King's The Mist, but the team had difficulty convincing King or his representation. Eventually, they pivoted to an original narrative. Team Silent started off as a small team of 4 creatives, but would eventually bloom to about 15 people for the first game, including director Keiichiro Toyama, artist Masahiro Ito, monster designer Naoko Sato, and CGI director Takayoshi Sato. Apologies if these names are out of order. Some sources have the Japanese ordering and some have the English ordering. I'm trying to keep them consistent. Many members of Team Silent at this time were young people, early in their careers. They were horror fans, inspired by the works of writers like Stephen King and Dean Koontz, films like The Exorcist, and directors like David Lynch, Alejandro Jodorowsky, and Jan Svankmajer. To quote the Gaming Muse's game documentary, Creating Silent Hill,
"The entire team had grown up in the occult boom, but none of them had quite fallen in love with it, like Toyama had. Toyama loved the unexplained, and he loved things that took time to unravel. His childhood playing adventure games like Churaga inspired his desire to make the game difficult, to include puzzles and aspects that could be overlooked or only solved on a second playthrough. He was also quite fond of imperfect horror, the kind that gave a sense of warped discomfort because of how off or wrong it was, in the sense that it didn't seem completely believable. The more random, stylized elements of the game likely stem from his desire to embrace the absurd."
Silent Hill 1 was a commercial success, and when it came time to make Silent Hill 2, the second Team Silent had exploded to at least 60 people working on the game at a time. A few years ago, while I was trying to learn either Unity or Godot, I remember hearing that Konami would use Team Silent as their dump team. Whenever a programmer was hard to work with, or they needed a place to put a new artist, or if there was someone that just rubbed executives the wrong way, they would be assigned to Team Silent. When I tried to find documentation for this, I wasn't able to confirm it, but I wanted to include it for reasons that should become clear later. While the first game was built piece by piece, the lighting system, the town, the monsters, the characters, and finally the narrative, the Silent Hill 2 team started off with their setting already decided. The scenario writer, Murakashi, took ideas from core members of the second Team Silent and collected them into a design document, and the team began working on a strong central narrative. They were inspired by the true crime stories surrounding Jack the Ripper, the works of David Lynch again, Stanley Kubrick, the Dostoevsky novel Crime and Punishment, and of course the film Jacob's Ladder. Going into the first sequel, the developers wanted to deepen the horror, to create something psychological and haunting. The monster designs were more avant-garde, the music more unsettling and abstract. The goal of everything was to make the player feel unease, disgust, and fear. While Silent Hill 2 is now remembered as a masterpiece of horror, it was not the commercial success that Konami/Cited expected. Silent Hill 3 and Silent Hill 4 The Room were developed at around the same time by 2 overlapping Silent Hill teams. Silent Hill 3 was a more traditional game, a direct sequel to the first Silent Hill, but with some important story breaks, such as the female protagonist Cheryl and the decision to kill off Harry Mason. Silent Hill 4 may have been developed as a side story, or as the beginning of a new Silent Hill phase, intending to expand the series so that it could extend outside the town of Silent Hill. By this time, Silent Hill was being inspired by the games that it inspired, such as Siren and Fatal Frame. Silent Hill 3 chased fans of the original, while Silent Hill 4 courted fans of more action-oriented horror games. This two-pronged approach was intended to capture a wider audience for the series, but both games ended up performing worse commercially than the first 2 games in the series. Though they are now considered masterpieces, each game unique and important in its own way, Silent Hill 2, 3, and 4 failed to match the breakout success of the first Silent Hill game. Over time, these 4 games came to encompass the Silent Hill canon. There's more to be said about the later games in the series, and I'm sure I'll talk about them at some point in the future. But for now, let's look at these 4 games and try to answer the question, what is a Silent Hill? Silent Hill is a series of adventure horror games developed by young horror fans at what was at the time a young games company. The team brought their own creative obsessions into the development process: occultism, psychology, horror books, horror movies, horror games. They developed a strong artistic vision of a town with a dark power at the center of it, and characters with dark secrets at the center of them, which they iterated on and learned about through their making of the games. Though they are each different, the games share commonalities: the imposing darkness, both physical and psychological, the town of fog, both literal and metaphorical, the monsters that emerge from the otherworld, both real and metaphysical, and of course rust. Just a whole lot of rust. They are uncomfortable, uncanny, complex, subtle, sometimes ridiculous, and often unnerving. But there is so much creative craft and love put into them by the teams that made them. I talked about the plot of the first and third Silent Hill games in my Silent Hill F video essay, but I want to go into a bit more detail here because it's important for the point. The first Silent Hill game has a lot of lore that you can dive into, but the story itself is quite simple. Harry's daughter has gone missing, and he intends to find her. The game starts off with Harry Mason and his daughter Cheryl driving into the town of Silent Hill. On the road, a young girl runs out in front of the car, causing Harry to spin out. We will later learn that this girl is Alessa. When he awakes from being knocked out, Harry finds his daughter gone from the car. From there, he embarks on a tireless mission to find her. Through playing the game, we learn that Cheryl was not his birth daughter, but that he and his late wife found her and adopted her. Cheryl was born when a young girl, Alessa, split her soul in two. Why did Alessa split her soul in two? Her mother, Dahlia, wanted to use her as a vessel to birth the god of the cult of Silent Hill, the Order. Alessa refused. With only half her soul, she would be unable to carry the god, thwarting her mother's plan. The dark part of her would remain in Silent Hill as Alessa, while the more innocent version of her was reborn, where Harry and his wife adopted her and took her out of Silent Hill. Upon re-entering Silent Hill, Alessa and Cheryl psychically or spiritually called out to each other, setting off the events of the game. In the bad ending of the game, Harry fights Alessa, who has been powered up after absorbing Cheryl. Upon killing her, Cheryl thanks Harry for releasing her before the Temple of the Order collapses around him. In the good ending of the game, Alessa gives birth to the cult's god, and Harry blows him away with the hunting rifle. Alessa hands Harry a baby, the reincarnation of Alessa and Cheryl. In the end, Harry finds his daughter, just not in the same form that he expected. While Harry is the main character of Silent Hill and who we play as throughout the game, Alessa has a lot of agency over the story. She is the one that splits her soul in two, bringing Cheryl into the world. She is also the one who drives Harry and Cheryl off the road, trying to take her out of the world. She is shown to have strong telekinetic powers, able to throw Harry off his feet. Her history is entwined with Lisa Garland, the nurse who helps guide Harry on his journey. Throughout the story, she appears to be trying to contain the otherworld through the use of the Seal of Metatron. While she is not the main character, she is an active character, trying to determine her own fate in the face of her mother's grand plan for her. I made the argument in my Silent Hill F video essay that Silent Hill 3 and Silent Hill F are ultimately about self-determination. Hinako and Heather are both trying to take control of their own fate. While it's not the focus of the original Silent Hill, Alessa is trying to do the same. Even though she's still a little girl, she knows that she doesn't want to be the Mother of God. Silent Hill 2006 does away with all of that and makes Alessa the Antichrist. The game has a level of ambiguity. Not everything is spelled out for the audience. Is the environment shifting around Harry, or is it all in his head? Is Cheryl Alessa and Alessa Cheryl, or are they two distinct characters? Or is there a broad overlap between the two of them, kind of like a David Lynch film? Where did everyone in Silent Hill go? What do the endings mean? If you've never played the games before, by the way, I have a whole Silent Hill playlist, I want to play a short segment that I think portrays the haunting beauty of the first game. In the final area of the game, Lisa Garland, a nurse from Alchemilla Hospital, realizes that she's also been affected by the town. Cutscene? Cutscene.
Harry,
Lisa, what's the matter with you?
I get it now. Why I'm still alive even though everyone else is dead. I'm not the only one who's still walking around. I'm the same as them. I just hadn't noticed it before.
Lisa.
Stay by me, Harry. Please. I'm so scared. Help me. Save me from them. Please. Harry.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
Lisa?
The film, perhaps worried that its Western film audience would miss the finer details, exaggerates everything. In Silent Hill 2006, Rose de Silva's adopted daughter Sharon has been having nightmares about a town called Silent Hill. Rose decides to take her daughter to Silent Hill to try to get to the bottom of the nightmares. A policewoman, Sybil, tries to stop her, but Rose crashes through a metal fence and into a pocket dimension. Throughout the movie, there are these cutaways to Sean Bean as Rose's husband, who is trying to find Rose and Sharon, but who has not entered the pocket dimension where Rose and Sharon are. They are in the same place, so close to each other, but they're unable to reach each other between one world and the other world. Side note, I don't know if I've ever seen a film mishandle Sean Bean as an actor as badly as Silent Hill 2006. This man played Boromir in Alex Trevelyan, and this film has given him negative personality somehow. Following along with the film, Rose, and we as the audience, learn that this cult of Silent Hill, the Brethren, rather than trying to summon Dark God, targeted a young girl as a witch because she's the daughter of a single mother. Yes, that's the whole thing. The children of Silent Hill bully her, she is sexually assaulted by the school janitor, her mother, Dahlia, tries to help, but the Brethren convince her to give up Alessa to the cult, who tries to burn the young girl. Alessa, rightfully hateful of the cult in the town, summons the darkest part of herself to curse the town of Silent Hill, setting it aflame from within. The monsters of Silent Hill, the bugs, the nurses, the weird writhing bodies, the executioner called Pyramid Head, all of them flow from Alessa's deal with the devil. Alessa created Sharon to experience a happy childhood, something she never had, sending her outside of the pocket dimension of Silent Hill to be adopted by Rose and her husband. The final act of the film is the story of the Brethren attempting to purify the town by burning Sybil and attempting to burn Sharon, but Alessa shows up as a kind of demonic force of nature to destroy what remains of the Brethren and sexually assault their leader with barbed wire. Yes, that's an actual thing that happens in this movie. Re-experiencing movie Alessa's story in 2026 was genuinely deflating. The storytelling in the first Silent Hill game is so subtle. Everything is stylized but understated. We're never told directly what happened to Alessa that put her in the hospital and made Lisa Garland want to quit her job, but the context for understanding that is put in place by the world building. We're never told that the nightmare creatures are Alessa's nightmares loosed upon the world, but the lore is there to support that. The scene where Harry is to descend to the final confrontation and catches a memory of Alessa and her mother on the stairwell, after everything Harry's done to find Cheryl, it just works so well. While Silent Hill the game is a tale of someone meeting unknown horrors from within and without and ultimately persevering in order to protect his daughter, Silent Hill the movie is the tale of mob mentality scarring a young girl so badly that she becomes evil and terrorizes the town back. To quote Ryan Hollinger's Are the Silent Hill Movies Really That Bad?
While the design and atmosphere is correct, it lacks any emotional substance whatsoever. It's foggy, but it's not creepy. It's ugly, but it's not grotesque. You pander nostalgia, but so what? It's never going to be as effective as playing the game firsthand, and you've already butchered the storyline so much that you've potentially alienated diehard fans of the series. It's like recreating Picasso because you traced over it.
The film ends with a kind of nihilistic sad ending that other horror films of the time had, revealing that Rose and Sharon, despite returning home, are still trapped in the Silent Hill pocket dimension, unable to reach out to Sean Bean even though he's right there, only a few feet in front of them. Though Christopher Gans purports to be a fan of Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2, it really feels like he's never experienced the first Silent Hill game. And though I'll talk about it more later when we get to the return to Silent Hill, it really feels like he's never experienced or engaged with Silent Hill 2 either. Silent Hill Revelation is an adaptation of Silent Hill 3, following Sharon and her adopted father, who are now going as Heather and Harry Mason to hide their identities. Somehow, Rose was able to pass Sharon from the other world back to Sean Bean between films. However, Sharon was attacked by a member of the Order, name changed to bring the game and the movie cults more into unison. Harry killed the attacker, forcing him and Sharon to move around and change their names to hide from the police. The film, written and directed by M.J. Bassett, broadly follows the events of the game, but in a schlocky, CW-fied way. Heather meets a boy at school, Vincent, played by Jon Snow actor Kit Harington, who's immediately drawn to her following her introductory monologue. When she gets home to find that Harry is missing, the symbol of the Order drawn in blood on the wall, Vincent is there to assist her. The private investigator from the game, Douglas Cartland, shows up at the mall, but in this version, his presence is cut short as a monster shows up to attack Heather, and he is killed in the process. Vincent takes over Douglas's role, driving Heather back to Silent Hill. However, at the hotel, he reveals that he's a child of the Order and has their symbol branded on his chest. Malcolm McDowell and Carrie-Anne Moss show up as senior members of the Order, Carrie-Anne Moss as Vincent's mother. Carrie-Anne Moss plans to kill Heather because she believes that Heather, as Alessa, is the source of the Dark Otherworld. But Pyramid Head shows up to fight Carrie-Anne Moss, who is revealed to be the monster from the mall when she comes into contact with the Seal of Metatron. Pyramid Head wins the fight, slays the Carrie-Anne Moss monster, and saves the day. Put a pin in the Pyramid Head thing because he's shown up in both movies so far, and he's going to show up in Return to Silent Hill as well. With the cult dispatched, Harry, Heather, and Vincent go to leave Silent Hill once again, but Harry decides to stay behind to look for Rose. Heather and Vincent hitch a ride with the protagonist of Silent Hill Origins and pass a prison bus presumably containing the protagonist of Silent Hill Downpour in a strange setup/tie-in of the games and the movies. I have to say that I had more fun with Silent Hill Revelation than I did with Silent Hill 2006, even though Silent Hill Revelation is probably a worse movie, just from an artistic standpoint. The lighting is very flat, some of the scenes are noticeably staged for 3D pop-outs, the acting is wooden, and the overall journey is ultimately unsatisfying. Heather's vision flashes showing disturbing images, children chewing raw meat, a butcher cutting into a man, an evil clown. It's trying very hard in the way a sci-fi original movie might try on a shoestring budget. But the real failing of Silent Hill Revelation is that while it apes the story of Silent Hill 3, it doesn't bother to explore any of the underlying themes of Silent Hill 3. To quote Super Eyepatch Wolf's The Problem with Silent Hill 3, The Fall of Team Silent.
There's a malicious glee to the way Silent Hill treats Heather. It mocks her in a way that's entirely more playful and cruel than previous games, and it does it by exploiting the vulnerabilities that come with being a teenager. Take something like body image, for example. Early in the game, Heather expresses her discomfort around mirrors and seeing her own image, only for later on, Silent Hill to show her images of her own reflection distorting and corrupting, and even repeatedly confronting Heather with rotting versions of herself, with many of the monsters of the game having a much greater emphasis on physical deformity and body horror, from the large swollen arms of the Closer to the obese heaving bodies of the insane Cancer, all evoking a fear of a distorted image of the human body. This wasn't the only teenage anxiety that the town used, however. Heather receives bizarre, unwanted love letters accompanied by broken dolls that both romanticize and objectify her. She's constantly followed and stalked by a faceless monster and is harassed with ominous, threatening phone calls from unseen men. Body image issues, unwanted romantic attention, stalking, and the threat of physical or even sexual assault. Anxieties for anyone but a set that feels specific to being a teenage girl.
In the hands of a better writer or director, Heather Mason could have been the next Laura Palmer, Betty Elms, Clarice Starling, a complex, well-realized character who's sometimes charming, sometimes terrifying, containing both intense good and bad. Instead, she's boring. All the edges of her character are sanded down and flattened. She's a vehicle for the story to be told, with none of the internal turmoil. Return to Silent Hill is ostensibly an adaptation of Silent Hill 2. I say ostensibly because it, probably predictably at this point, suffers from the same problems of both Silent Hill 2006 and Silent Hill Revelation, as well as its own share of problems. Silent Hill 2 is the story of James Sunderland. James has received a letter from his late wife Mary, who died 3 years ago from an unnamed illness. In the letter, Mary says she will be waiting for him in their special place, Silent Hill. But when he arrives, a stranger, Angela, tells him that he needs to be careful because something's gone wrong with the town. Angela is dealing with suicidal thoughts relating to her assault by her own father, though this is only implied by the game. James disregards Angela's warning and heads into town, finding a man named Eddie, who seems to be unraveling through his time in Silent Hill, and Laura, a young girl who seems blissfully unaware of any of the strange going-ons in town. Finally, there is Maria. Maria is an exact copy of Mary, aside from her hair and clothes. She has the keys to the strip club, Heaven's Night, and in the extra scenario, Born from a Wish, we see she lives above the strip club. She is modeled after Christina Aguilera and Cameron Diaz. She joins James in his adventure, accompanying him to the hospital where she falls ill similarly to Mary. James and Maria are separated when she is seemingly killed by the executioner at Pyramid Head. However, later on we find her in a room, unharmed, speaking intimately to James about his forgetfulness. Is she Maria? Or is she Mary? Or is she somehow both? A superposition? I'm assuming if you're watching this video that you've already played, watched, or at least heard of the twist at the end of Silent Hill 2. But if you haven't, I want to give you a chance to turn the video off now. Go play it, go watch me play it. I promise that it will be more effective experiencing it than hearing about it in a video essay. Through the game, we learn that James is repressing memories of a terrible secret. He never received a letter from Mary, and she has not been dead for 3 years. In fact, James killed Mary, covering her face with a pillow until she was no more. Maria is James's manifestation, a comfort character for him to protect and care about. So is Pyramid Head, a dark punishment James made up for himself. James's trek into the town of Silent Hill is a deeply personal psychological journey into his own heart of darkness. James Sunderland is also the protagonist of the film, but he feels almost like a new character. He's introduced driving his fast convertible through the hills above Silent Hill, smoking a joint while rock music plays. This James is a tortured, edgy artist. As he is swerving to avoid a logging truck, he accidentally hits a suitcase carried by a woman crossing the road. The woman, it turns out, is Mary, who is attempting to carry her suitcase onto an outbound bus. But due to her luggage being hit by James's car, she tells the bus driver to go ahead without her. Her and James flirt before he drives her into town below. As they start dating, James follows Mary one day to learn she is part of the cult of Silent Hill, the Order, who she describes as her friends and family following her father's death. James witnesses the cult feeding her a poisoned substance before consuming Mary, though she later returns unharmed. When she gets sick, it's implied that the cult caused her sickness somehow. The film flashes backward and forward between James and Mary's relationship and James's return to Silent Hill. They said the thing. After he receives a letter from the now-deceased Mary. James meets Maria and Angela similar to their appearances in the game, but Angela is played by the same actress as Mary for some reason. In the game, Angela's grief and anger over her assault culminates in the Abstract Daddy fight. The arena for this fight is a room lined with pumping pistons and gross, dirty walls. The Abstract Daddy is an amalgamation of two people, one on top, one on the bottom, forming a kind of pincher connected by a bed frame. The implications of the design, both of the monster and of the room, are horrifying, but there is a little bit of catharsis when the fight is finished. Angela drops a television set on the monster and then kicks it before heading out. When James later meets Angela in a burning stairwell in the resort, she tells him that he's unable to save her. Her anger and grief is too deep, her fire burning too intense. Will he give up everything for her? No, of course he won't. The game is intense and heartbreaking, but it is also deeply empathetic with the plight of both James and Angela. Both are haunted characters, but neither is a monster in their own right. In the film, the Abstract Daddy monster absorbs Angela into it, making her half of the monster. Yeah. In the film, James sees inside Pyramid Head's pyramid, and his own face looks back at him. Yeah. Eddie and Laura are also in the film. Eddie is gross and rotting and immediately aggressive towards James for some reason. Laura looks like she crawled out of a Tim Burton movie. Maria shows up in the last act of the movie, but she's really only there to die. While film James does realize that he actually killed his girlfriend Mary, in a flashback we see her wrap a cloth around James's hand and place it over her own face. All of that grief and complex guilt that game James felt no longer matters to movie James because she wanted him to kill her. James didn't kill her out of some complex web of selfishness and love, wanting both to end her pain and to be free of her as a burden. He killed her because, actually, she wanted it. Near the end of the movie, James finally catches up with Laura, who asks him if he realizes what Mary's middle names are. Why does that matter? Mary in the film is named Mary Angela Laura Crane. Maria, Angela, and Laura are all different aspects of Mary. So James did find Mary in Silent Hill, just not in the same form that he expected. The film ends with a bizarre segment in which James drives into the lake before traveling back in time to the moment he met Mary, having just hit her suitcase with his car. He helps her pick up her suitcase and load it into the car, and they drive into the sunset while rock music plays. Nothing that happened to James in Silent Hill really happened, nor mattered, nor should we particularly care about it at all. James isn't tortured anymore, and why should he be? He got his girlfriend back. and that's all that ever mattered. So you see, Masahiro Ito, as the monster designer, made Pyramid Head to be a dark reflection of James in the game. Pyramid Head's Great Blade is actually one half of a pair of scissors, and James can find the other half in the labyrinth before getting to Maria. The design is deeply personally tied to James, as James is ultimately his own executioner. Pyramid Head quickly became a fan favorite character. Unfortunately, he was too iconic for his own good. Japanese and Western fans wanted to see him in more games, even when that wouldn't make sense, which is partially why he shows up in Homecoming and Downpour, despite neither of those games featuring James Sunderland. As far as Pyramid Head in the films generally, I would guess that Christoph Gans thinks that Pyramid Head is cool, and so he wanted him in the first Silent Hill film as a kind of fan service character mascot. Then, in Return to Silent Hill, if I had to hazard a guess, I think that Christoph Gans saw the scene in Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, where Luke Skywalker sees Darth Vader's helmet split open to reveal his own face, and he thought that scene was cool without really understanding the intention of it, so then he put it into his own film. I don't know if MJ Bassett wanted Pyramid Head for Silent Hill Revelation, or if the studio demanded he be included, either because they thought it would sell more tickets or for continuity. Either way, regardless of what Christoph Gans or MJ Bassett might have intended for Pyramid Head to represent in the films, what he ultimately represents as a viewer is a kind of disrespect for the source material. His presence is keys jingling for people who aren't paying attention. You like this, don't you? Gans and Bassett ask. Look, it's that thing you like. Let's talk about the gender politics of Silent Hill. Though the first 4 Silent Hill games are not about gender, they do have a lot to say about gender. Harry Mason is a foil to other adventure game and horror game protagonists. He is not an action hero like a Chris Redfield, he's a writer. He's a single father acting as both parents for Cheryl, deeply devoted to her even though they are not related by blood. This works in the game's favor in multiple ways. He is able to be something of an everyman, someone the player can project onto. Because he is not an action hero, the danger to him is greater, and the fear for him in the hands of the player is much greater. Playing through Silent Hill on hard mode makes Harry very fragile, as he tries to navigate the school, the hospital, the sewers, the overworld. Being a single parent also gives him a strong central motivation. But it also lets Team Silent expand the domain of horror around Harry. Because he cares about the people that he comes into contact with, Sybil, Lisa, Alessa, Team Silent is able to explore the violence against those characters. Sybil with the parasite, a loss of control, Lisa with the violence visited upon her by Kaufman, and Alessa with the abuse and manipulation visited upon her by her own mother. There are essentially 3 types of violence in Silent Hill: that of the monsters, that of the people, and that of the people that we care about. Throughout Silent Hill 2, we get to experience James's violence against himself and against Mary as a complex mixture of all 3. Silent Hill 3 is the most complex, examining both the physical violence of someone like James or Kaufman and the emotional manipulative violence of Dahlia and Claudia. To quote another The Gaming Muse video, Gender and Action in Silent Hill,
The true revelation at the heart of Silent Hill is one of moderation, because the best of its characters are those who embody both the male and female ideals. Consider Harry, who is so traditionally feminine, he became a woman. And Heather, a female protagonist who behaves far more violently and masculine than many others like her. Both characters could be described as having most of the traits of their traditional opposites, because they are healthy, well-rounded people who grew up in normal families and not a cult run by violence and oppression. Heather is allowed to be emotional and cutesy, calling her father daddy, but she's also physically active and tough, and she's everything in between. Her father, Harry, is an action hero who runs through half of Silent Hill to save his daughter, and he takes the time to care for strangers he meets, to try and help others, to be emotional and share his feelings rather than repress them. The true secret to happiness, not trying to adhere to the ideal, male or female.
But Christoph Gans is not interested in complex webs of physical and emotional violence, of monsters and people, and those that we care about. Gans is interested in simple stories about crowds versus individuals, about religious fanaticism and demonic retribution, about mothers who are maternal and tortured cool guys who drive fast cars. In 2005, a psychological thriller called Stay was released, starring Ewan McGregor, Naomi Watts, and Ryan Gosling. It was written by David Benioff, who would go on to be one of the showrunners of A Game of Thrones, and it was directed by Mark Forster, who would go on to direct Quantum of Solace and World War Z. Stay is based off of Ambrose Bierce's An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, which also inspired Jacob's Ladder and many other psychological films, and, eventually, Silent Hill 2. Stay doesn't have any particular staying power. I'm not sure why I even remember it, but I remember near the end of it, the visuals in the background start to become more surreal. While Ewan McGregor talks to Bob Hoskins, the extras in the background begin to group up in threes, walking in lockstep with each other. Scenes that should be crystal clear are distorted through a lens, as though we are seeing them with something in our eyes. All of this is understated, secondary to the characters and their drama, but it helps add to an unsettling feeling, as though the world is somehow off or wrong. In 2020, Charlie Kaufman released a psychological thriller called I'm Thinking of Ending Things. The characters in the film are always changing, the protagonist receiving multiple names and outfits and backstories from Jesse Plemons' Jake. Is she real at all? Is she somehow a construct of Jake's? Is this world that we're experiencing real, insofar as any fictional world is real? Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, Robert Eggers' The Witch, David Robert Mitchell's It Follows, Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Pulse, Jordan Peele's Nope. These films are subtle. Usually they're quiet. They create a sense of unsettling forces working against both the characters in the story and the viewer. Things happen in the background that change how you see the story. The world feels rich and deep and wrong. Last month I went to see Markiplier's Iron Lung. Iron Lung isn't a particularly subtle film, though it does have its moments. I wouldn't even call it an incredible film. I have my share of complaints about it. But as a self-funded indie project with a strong artistic vision, well-realized characters, and a developed world, it's a pretty good place to start. I want more subtle horror. I want more deeply developed characters made by young creatives early in their careers, obsessive nerds, women that higher-ups find difficult to work with, people with a strong artistic vision and the creative chops to make that vision a reality. I want more horror that's haunting and beautiful, that's creepy, that's grotesque, that I can't get out of my head. At the end of my Resident Evil video essay, I gave an idea for what a Resident Evil movie could be, and I want to give that same treatment here. Again, this isn't me saying I could make a better film than Christoph Gans. Filmmaking is an immense task that takes loads of money and connections and experience that I just don't have. Think of it more as Ratat giving thoughts on how the Dark Pictures anthology games could be improved. A young woman is taken on a family holiday with her parents and her brother to the resort town of Silent Hill. We start with them on the car trip up to the lake. On the surface, they seem like a normal family. The daughter listening to music on her phone, texting one of her friends, trying to escape from the confinement of the car. The brother plays a game in the seat across from her. The father and mother sit in the front seat talking about something mundane. But there seems to be something wrong with all of them, something subtle. Small outbursts from the father and mother, the brother sneaking glances at something in his coat. Think of the family from the recent Color Out of Space movie. Not a bad family, but there's something off. The drive through Silent Hill would be just a little off. The people of the town don't seem to be looking where they're going, moving like zombies from one place to another, without so much as a glance at each other or the family in the car beside them. A near miss as someone steps into the street and the dad has to step on the brake, his arm reaching out to shield his wife as the car jerks to a stop. What's wrong with these people? Must be on drugs. At the hotel, they would check in, talking to the concierge about the places around Silent Hill. The Historical Society, the old church, and of course, plenty of places to fish. They would head up to their rooms, the brother and sister in one room, the father and mother in another. The young woman would go to take a nap, leaving her family to kill time until dinner. Before her nap, we would get a brief glimpse at her text messages. Something is wrong. Though she does not say anything outwardly, she would start to cry, tears dripping down her face, as she sent her text messages to someone we do not know. She would sleep, but when she woke, she would see that the room around her had changed, the curtains moth-eaten, the bed rotting beneath her, the door barely hanging on by its hinges. Her parents and brother would be nowhere in sight. As she explored the hotel looking for someone, anyone, she would find monsters. A hulking brute of a monster man, a slender woman-shaped monster with long, snake-like arms that moved in awful, unnatural waves. A smaller monster with large eyes that seemed to leer at her in ways that make her uncomfortable, beckoning the others to her location. There would be one more monster, of course, her own version of Pyramid Head, a creature made of her insecurities and fears that would stalk her through the hotel. It would peek at her from mirrors, watch her from windows. She would cower from it, even when it did not move. I like the idea of the monsters hunting her through Silent Hill every time she needs to get somewhere. Give her a chance to be inventive, to be creative, to be a survivor, as she avoids them. Each of the locations in her journey would reflect not only her family members, but herself. Going to the lake in search for her father, or the church in search of her mother, or the historical society in search for her brother, would yield hints about her family and their past. Dread sins they're trying to bury, to run away from. And it would all lead back to her own sin, whatever she's running away from. Not finding her family, she would head back to the hotel, not knowing where else to go. There, the monsters would converge on her, but she would have already realized what she needed to do. She would confess to the four monsters, confess what they had done, confess to what she had done, and the four monsters would part in front of her to let her down into the basement. Descending into the basement, she would enter into a surreal world, Alice entering into Wonderland. The world around her would stop making geometric sense as she plunged deeper and deeper into the dark abyss beneath the hotel. And once she reached the bottom, she would find the person that she hurt. She would drop to her knees. She would apologize. The figure in front of her would offer no solace, would offer no words at all. The room around her would begin to flood as she screamed and shouted about how she was sorry. The water would cover her, threatening to drown her as the world around her faded to black. And then her brother would be pulling her from the lake. She would gasp and breathe in air as she dragged her to the shore. They would sit on the shore, and he would ask what she thought she was doing. And she'd explain that everything they'd done, everything she'd done, had started to pile up around her until she didn't know what else to do. And she'd ask if he was going to tell their mom and dad, and he'd shake his head no, and say that it was their secret. Give that script to a director who's good at creating rich characters, a Jordan Peele, a Brian Fuller, a Robert Eggers. Let them build out the mystery, build out the intrigue, build out the characters in the world. Give it to a Jane Schonbrun. Let them craft it into a reflection on gender. Give it to a Rose Glass or Jennifer Kent, and let them push the characters to their breaking points. Give it to a new director, someone obsessed with Jacob's Ladder, and Session 9, and Lost Highway. Let them craft it into something deep, complex, subtle. Just please, give it to someone who understands that the interior has to be just as important as the exterior.